Imagine filing your tax return thinking the story is over, then finding out the numbers are just getting started. One year, the taxpayer reported total income of about $9,000. Then the Internal Revenue Service came back and said, no, the real picture includes another $15,000. Put together, that's around $24,000 in total income for the year as the government saw it. The jump was about $15,000, and by the end of the case, the court sustained the IRS's determination, meaning that extra $15,000 stayed in the story, along with deficiency of close to $4,000. The thing that comes to mind in this opinion is simple and sharp. Paperwork problems don't make income disappear. My name is Alex Dvorkin. I'm a certified public accountant in the state of California, and on this channel we review and analyze U.S. tax court cases to understand how U.S. tax law works. A quick reminder, if you like this kind of case story breakdown, please like this video and subscribe to this channel, because these opinions are packed with real-world lessons that don't show up in a normal tax checklist. In this video, we cover the tax court decision in the case of KELBY Daniel Reyes Barrios versus Commissioner of Internal Revenue, decided on April 16, 2026. In this case, the cast is small, the stakes are concrete, and the ending is, how do I put it, inevitable once the story starts unfolding the way it does. The setup begins with a 2022 return. The taxpayer filed a federal income tax return for that year, reporting a total income of about $9,000. That number matters because it's the baseline. What the taxpayer told IRS in writing, under penalty of perjury, was the income picture for 2022. Then comes the outside source of gravity, in this case, the third-party information return. The opinion explains that relying on Form 1099 NAC, non-employee compensation, the IRS later concluded that he had received an additional $15,000 in employee compensation from a specific payer, Antigua Floral and Styling LLC. That's, again, approximately $15,000 more than what showed up on the return. That one form changes the narrative. It's not just the IRS suspects something. It's that the IRS says, we have a document from a payer reporting non-employee compensation to you for the year. And based on that, the IRS issued a notice of deficiency determining a tax deficiency close to $4,000 for the 2022 tax year. Now, sometimes these cases, the real drama is about what the income was, whether it was received, whether it belonged to the taxpayer, whether it's taxable, whether it was already reported somewhere else, whether it was reimbursed, whether it was a loan, whether there were offsetting expenses, any of that. But here the opinion presents something much more stripped down, a claim, a chance to fight, and then silence. The taxpayer did file a petition with the tax court in time. That's important because it's the gateway to the whole dispute. The opinion says he timely filed a petition with the court contesting the commissioner's determination. And in that petition he gave a reason for why the income wasn't reported. He asserted he didn't report the income because the tax forms were mailed to a previous address, and he received them only after filing the return. The explanation tells you the taxpayer's framing. I didn't have the form in hand when I filed. It's a human explanation. It's also the kind of explanation that in everyday life sounds like it should matter. Because in everyday life, if you didn't receive the paperwork, you might assume you couldn't be expected to report what the paperwork would have said. But the tax court opinions are where everyday assumptions go to get stress tested. The commissioner responded by filing a motion for summary judgment. In plain language, that's the government saying there is no real factual fight here that requires a trial. The record is enough. We should win now as a matter of law. The opinion describes the commissioner's position as contending that there is no genuine dispute as to any material fact and that he entitled to judgment as a matter of law. And here's where the story becomes less about the underlying income and more about the taxpayer's participation in the process. The opinion makes a point of stating early and clearly that the taxpayer did not respond to commissioner motion for summary judgment. That matters because summary judgment isn't just about who was the better argument. It's also about whether the party opposing it comes forward with facts showing there is a genuine dispute that needs a trial. The purpose of a summary judgment is to expedite litigation and avoid costly, time-consuming, and unnecessary trial. Summary judgment is granted when there is no genuine dispute as to any material fact, and the moving party is entitled to judgment as a matter of law. The court also notes it looks at the evidence in the light most favorable to the non-moving party. But theory needs participation to become reality. The court emphasizes that the non-moving party can't just sit back and rely on mere allegations or denials. Instead, the party must set forth specific facts showing that there is a genuine dispute for trial. And in this case, the taxpayer didn't do that. The opinion recounts that the court itself gave warnings. It says the court ordered the taxpayer to respond to the motion and explained that failure to respond risks the court granting the motion, which would end the case. He still didn't respond within the time provided or at any time since. So the court escalated. It set the motion for hearing during the San Francisco, California trial session. That's the court saying, show up, engage, tell us what the dispute is. But the taxpayer didn't answer. The opinion says he didn't appear at the hearing or otherwise communicate with the court. And then the court did something you can almost hear as the final sign. It provided a final opportunity to respond, and again, no response. At that point, the case is like a stage with a spotlight turned on, the microphone live, and one side simply never walks out. The court even notes that because of the failure to respond, it could enter decision against him for that reason alone. That's a key line, because it signals the taxpayer's silence isn't just strategically unhelpful, it can be case-ending. Still, the court says it nevertheless considers the motion on its merits and concludes the case is appropriate for summary adjudication. Now the story pivots back to the money, what it was, how it was proved, and who had to do what next. The opinion reminds us of a basic structure. IRS determination is a notice of deficiency, are generally presumed correct, and the taxpayer bears the burden of proving them wrong. But there's a twist in unreported income cases, at least in the Ninth Circuit, where the case would originally be appealable. The commissioner must first establish some evidentiary foundation linking the taxpayer to income-producing activity before the presumption of correctness attaches. And the court explains how that foundation is built here. Undisputed third-party information returns suffice to establish this foundation. In other words, Form 1099 can be enough if it is undisputed. Then comes the line that is basically the hinge of this entire opinion. The non-employee compensation payments at issue in this case are undisputed. The commissioner supported the motion with IRS account transcript and Form 1099 NEC, and those records reflected that the taxpayer received approximately $15,000 in non-employee compensation from Antigua Floral and Styling LLC during 2022. And here's what the court says next, which is quietly devastating. The taxpayer did not contest receiving this amount either in his petition or at any other point during the pendency of this case. Read that again in plain English. Even in the original petition, where he explained the form went to an old address, he didn't say, I didn't get paid, or the amount is wrong, or that the payer never paid me, this is someone else's income, or anything like that. The court is telling us the receipt of money was not contested. So once the commissioner has that evidentiary foundation, the burden shifts in a practical sense. The taxpayer must prove an exclusion from gross income or otherwise show why the IRS was wrong to treat it as taxable income. What does taxpayer offer? The opinion says that in this court he asserts solely that he received the tax form after filing his return. That's it. No dispute about the payment, no alternative calculations, no offsets, no explanation that changes the character of the payment, just a timing and mailing problem about document. And then the court delivers the central lesson in a line that probably should be printed on a postcard and mailed, preferably to the correct address. The failure to receive tax information form does not excuse the taxpayer from his obligation to report income. The opinion even quotes another case to drive home the bluntness. Failure to receive tax documents does not excuse taxpayer from the duty to report income. So in summary, what happens in this case? The taxpayer filed the return reporting about $9,000 of income. A payer filed an information return reporting about $15,000 of non-employee compensation to him. The IRS matched that, determined that there was additional income not reported, and issued notice of deficiency close to $4,000. The taxpayer came to tax court and said basically, I didn't get the form until I filed. Then when the commissioner moved for summary judgment, the taxpayer did not respond, didn't show up to the hearing, didn't communicate. On the merits, the court saw undisputed third-party evidence of the payment and no argument, other than late receipt of form, to exclude it from the taxable income. The court sustained the IRS deficiency determination and granted summary judgment for the commissioner. The ending is short, as these endings often are. The court said there is no genuine dispute as to any material facts. The commissioner is entitled to judgment as a matter of law, and the IRS's deficiency determination is sustained. My name is Alex Dvorkin. I'm a certified public accountant in the state of California. If you like this video and found this information useful, please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you in the next tax court case review.